So I'm printing stuff for this house. It's the huge long haul from the new Kickstarter by 3D Layered Scenery. And in today's video I'm gonna show you how I painted this house. It's quite a cool little residence house with a big tree growing out of it, and yeah, I'm gonna show you how I did it. Enjoy. So this is one of the buildings from the Northvacht Kickstarter from 3D Layered Scenery. The guy Job de Bruin designing everything himself and yeah, doing all the work. I've been helping him test printing and painting up a diorama piece for his Kickstarter page and painting all of the buildings almost. As you can see, I haven't printed the long hall yet and not the palisade walls. I don't have all the time in the world, unfortunately. But this building I thought I'd do a video on, so after undercoating it with Zandri Dust and some Army Builder Leather Brown, I went to town with my airbrush, starting with some US Grey for the stonework. And if you wonder why I'm using airbrush, you can see that here. It's just so fast. Some burnt umber from Vallejo also on the wood parts. Just quickly go over them. Try to hit them as neat as you can. But this brown is actually quite a nice shade for the beige thatched roof parts, also the hay, so it doesn't matter if it's a little bit outside the lines, but try to be as neat as you can. But speed is of the essence when you're painting a lot of buildings, and that's what I'm doing. So trying to cut some corners but getting in kind of a good result anyway. So the airbrush is just fantastic for painting terrain. I fixed some of the mistakes with some tan paint from also Vallejo Air, and I highlighted some of the thatched roof parts also with it. So to create the look of fire or candlelight inside the building, I just gradually highlight each window pane with different tones of yellow up to white, and I think that's a nice way of painting windows. I've done some blue ones in the past, but I mean, it looks very cartoonish. This looks a little bit more realistic. The doors were painted with some interior green and a lighter shade of green. I don't remember what it's called. I think it's called pale green. I think green doors looks kind of nice on these. It's kind of a Hobbit style door. And then the same green tones are used to simulate some moss or algae growing in the corners and on the tree. The big tree is looking very old. It has no leaves or foliage, so I thought it would be an overgrown, moss-grown tree here. So I applied kind of a heavy green tone to it. And this is what it looks like after the airbrushing stage is done. And time for dry brushing. Start with I just use some craft paint. This is Liquitex paint, and I just dry brush with a light brown color here all over the woodwork, and trying to be so neat that I don't hit the windows or the thatched roof. And with some practice and wiping off most of the paint, you can actually do that. Dry brushing, it's kind of a practice skill, so you can just lightly flick it over where you want and you won't hit the parts you don't want to hit. So just practice on some stuff that you don't really like, and if you're 3D printing, you know you have some failed prints to practice on. I then go over with a light beige color. I think it's some kind of umber tone, but very light, and I just dry brush everything. This is both very simple and practical, and it kind of ties everything together with the same tone of the highlight color, because it gives everything the look that it's kind of the same sunlight hitting everything, and it works on the gray, it works on the wood, it works on the stonework also. I've actually used this paint to highlight blue, and it works also, so don't be afraid to just use one tone all over. And the woodwork becomes very pale, so then I go back with the brown color and I reapply the dry brush, almost like a wash. You just tint the highlight up a little bit, back to brown, and it's still lighter brown. But then once again I give it a slight dry brush of the beige color again, just to bring out the edges of the wood. I think that looks kind of good, and it's very simple and very, very fast. So don't be afraid to just experiment some with like tinting, and just some pure white on the thatched roof and the stonework, just to bring it out a little bit more and create a difference between those materials on the wood. And then dry brushing is done. And this is how the model looks after that stage, and I'm on to painting some small details. It's mostly just some metal rivets that I picked up with just a mix of gunmetal and some steel paint from Vallejo Air that I just apply with a brush. It has very good coverage despite being air paint. And then some quick shade, dark tone, just slather it on all over the model, and sometimes I actually mix this with some white spirit to dilute it, mostly to save money. It actually works quite well, but this time the can was full, so I couldn't actually dilute it any more than it was. And after applying this wash all over the model, I just wipe it off, the excess from the highlighted areas with tissue paper, just to get rid of where it's pooling and stuff. And then you're done, actually. This will create a gloss finish, so you have to varnish it, and I've done that, and now I'm just applying some weathering powder as a last stage, mostly on the stone areas, and where I previously applied the moss or algae. I just put on some of this medium light brown dust pigment that's leaves a very nice natural finish to the model, and I use that for a lot of stuff. It's a really fun stage. You can do this and just wipe some off and do some more. Don't do too much at once, because that might create it's hard to get it off. And then I just reapply some varnish if you got some gloss areas, and where you applied the powder if you want that. And the model is finished. It took maybe 45 minutes total to paint this model, and if you paint several models at once, you can bring down the time actually even more. So yeah, it's good to be quite fast, but I mean, this is kind of easy, and it's really a lot of fun, so good luck doing it yourself. And go support this Kickstarter, it's really good. I enjoyed painting these houses. Thanks for watching.